And with the bell ringing, we are ready to begin our Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting for this Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. As we do with our meetings, we begin with song. Our favorite swinger, Charlie Page. Take it away via video.
Oh, hi, Rotarians. I'm just out here getting a few swings at the old ball, getting ready for baseball season. Which reminds me, let's all sing, take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back, for it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. What do you mean? That was a ball. That wasn't a... All right, come on. Yeah. I'm okay.
Oh, what a great presentation there from Charlie Page. And now, everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have our invocation, and to offer our invocation today, again, we offer Lori Vidal.
Am I there? Ready to go? Good. I'm sure looking forward to our program today. I spent my professional life telling stories from great literature, and certainly believe in the power and potential of a great story. I'm also anxious, and I just had to make a comment about this, to find out what a driveway moment is, Maria. I've had some pretty amazing driveway moments at the end of dates in high school. But I don't think that is what is being referred to in your introductory material. So with that thought in mind, it's probably time for me to just pray. So let me pray. We thank you for bringing us together again as Rotary on a Tuesday at lunch in this most unique format for all of us. We long for more freedom and access and relationships. And we are part of Rotary because of the dynamic of the relationships, enabling us to accomplish so much for our community. We need encouragement, the kind of encouragement that can come from a good story. And we have been doing a lot of crying over the circumstances around us as we live out our story at this time. Physical, financial, relational, and emotional issues we're experiencing. It would be very good for us to laugh some today, as we have done, as we started in our bantering. And we want to find just some good laughter. We need that in our lives as well. But it is good to know, I believe, that our story ends well as we learn more and more how to serve others, motivated by our love for you, Father. In response to the love you have shown us, we're here, committed to service above self. May our time together be beneficial to each one who is present online to watch, hear, and be motivated by all our stories. And I pray in the name of the great storyteller. Amen.
Amen, Lori. Thank you so much for your invocation today. It is time now to introduce guests of members, and it looks like we have a guest of Bobby Hall. Joining us again today is Kevin Thorpe. Welcome, Kevin. Also, Cotton Fletcher joining us today. And since Helen has microphone access, we'll let Helen introduce her guest, and we can roll right into her guest's announcement. Helen, take it away.
Okay. I want to introduce Kelly, who's really not someone new to Rotary. Hi, Kelly Costomo. She's from the Alachua County School Board, and she deals with all the volunteer services, and we've done many, many projects with her before. Kelly's here to tell us more about the purposes and the use of the Undy 500. And so, Kelly, take it away.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to join your meeting today. Several years ago, we started the Undy 500 as a way to help our school nurses be prepared for accidents that happen at school, and so that we can quickly resolve the students' issues and send them back to class. And this year, I think it's probably as important as ever before, as we would like to keep as many issues away from the school nurse as possible, and to get them resolved as quickly as we can so that they can hopefully be devoting their attention to the pressing problems that we are dealing with now in schools and with one school nurse at most schools. So I appreciate you guys' continued dedication to our Undy's 500 project, and I look forward to being up to my elbows in underwear again soon, sorting them to send them to schools. And we really, really appreciate you guys continuing this project. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly, for being here today, and thank you, Helen, for that wonderful introduction for our guest, Kelly. Now we turn the meeting over to our president, Matthew Brady.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Very happy to be here today and see each and every one of you and your smiling faces. I love scrolling through and seeing everybody. Obviously, in person would be better, but this is what we have. And so great to see Kelly Costomo, KK. I appreciate Kelly very much. She has a great passion. And, you know, 2 points about very beginning of the year talked about service opportunities. And I said there would be a few times we'd ask for a wee bit more, okay, beyond rolling up the sleeves. And this is one, because I believe this is a very tangible project that we can help with. We can teach our younger ones too, that may be in schools that have passion. If they ever see, were to see a situation and understand that there's great needs. So this is one of the few where say, hey, we're going to collect a little bit more money, but we're going to do a pretty amazing thing as you hear about here, and we can teach lessons with that. I know even for mine, whether it be a grandchild, a son, daughter, niece, nephew. So the other thing is, as I assure you, we're delayed, but Kelly's working very hard in getting us to Terwilliger so we can do amazing things there. And that's going to be, our opportunity to really roll up the sleeves and do what we as Rotarians can do best, and that's put our efforts together and make an impact in the community. So keep looking out. Hopefully have an announcement on that soon. So thank you, Kelly, for continuing to push forward on that. We look forward to hearing more. This Friday, the tech team, okay, we're going to set up our equipment and test everything out. And we're going to do that at the Wyndham in preparation for next Tuesday, the 11th. Now, we're going to go test mode live next 11th. We'll not have Rotarians present. We're going to go a dry run, okay, or a live run from the hotel. Our speaker will be Zooming in, so it's a great opportunity that we can test it. And what our ultimate goal is that we work out all the kinks next Tuesday, the 11th, and then we are back live August the 18th. Pending any other developments. I know we all get tired of hearing that, but it is a very applicable statement. We always have to be mindful that things can change. But right now, that's the course, is that when we test out the 11th, it all goes well. We'll be back on the 18th. And when we're back on the 18th, the whole intent is that we have an option. If you're comfortable to come in person, you can come in person with a correct safety protocol, or you can still zoom in. And when you zoom in, you can zoom in and it will be interactive as well. So I've got to take this time to say a big thank you to Richard Allen for the passion, inspiration, and very generous gift to our club to make this technology work. So thank you, Richard Allen. And also to Joe and Wes and Jeff for helping put the pieces together. So, when I say tech team, I'm going to show up and watch, but I assure you I cannot make those things happen. And I know there's going to be a time where I'm going to be pulling on Don Bugus as well, who's been a great asset to the club for many years. So so thank you again to all of those Rotarians for making things happen. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Jenny Van Hart to introduce today's speaker.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about today's speaker. Maria Santiago is an archivist of oral histories at StoryCorps and an independent oral historian. She has received training in oral history, ethics, and methodology from Columbia University's Center for Oral History Research, Suzanne Snyder's Oral History Summer School, and the UC Berkeley Oral History Center Advanced Summer Institute. Her independent practice focuses on cross-cultural oral histories, many with survivors of state and ethnically sanctioned violence. As an archivist, she works in the intersection of oral history, metadata, and technology, ethics, and project design. Maria has worked with StoryCorps in various capacities since 2016. Her prior work experience includes work on the Brooklyn Historical Society's Voices of a Generation collection and on Dr. Dan Royal's African Americans AIDS Activism Oral History Project. That's a mouthful. She received her MLIS in Archives from Pratt in May 2018. Over to you, Maria.
Thank you very much. It's so good to be with you all today and to see all of your smiling faces. I'm going to get started with my presentation, which means I will share my screen. Okay, so let's see. 1 second. Let's do this. And are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So first I want to say thank you to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which makes StoryCorps possible, but also which makes StoryCorps Connect possible, as well as Vonage, which is the company that has gifted us with the video teleconferencing software that Connect runs on. So today I'm going to provide some background on StoryCorps, including our mission and history. I'm going to tell you a little bit about StoryCorps Connect, and I'm going to invite you to record a story of your own. So at StoryCorps, our mission is to preserve and share humanity's stories in order to build connections between people and create a more just and compassionate world. StoryCorps was created 17 years ago in 2003 by radio producer Dave Isay using funds from a MacArthur Genius Grant. The first thing they did was put up a booth in Grand Central Terminal in the heart of New York City. Now, a booth is just a tiny professional recording studio, just big enough for 2 people to fit in with a couple of microphones, plus one of StoryCorps' facilitators who runs the recording equipment, takes notes, and sometimes asks questions to ask people to speak more and provide a little bit more detail to their story. So the hope was that people would come in, sit down, and talk to each other about their lives. You can talk about literally anything that you want to talk about, and that the other person would just listen and understand a little bit more about that person's lives. Sometimes to sit and just take it in like a live radio documentary, and sometimes to share the discussion, create a dialogue, and talk about things that you share, which could be loved ones, memories, friends, and stories. Now, in the beginning, we weren't 100% certain that it would work, if people would actually want to take part in this conversation project, but it was a smashing success. Soon we had an Airstream trailer outfitted with a recording booth touring the country on a perpetual American road trip. Before long, produced excerpts from StoryCorps' interviews began airing on public radio each Friday morning on Morning Edition on NPR. But we create our 3-minute poems about the human experience that hopefully have a shelf life of forever. But StoryCorps remains centrally about listening, because the act of listening reminds people that they matter so very much. Let's listen to a few of our radio segments to give you a better idea of what I mean. This is Alfred and Aidan Sykes.
Do you remember what was going through your head when you first saw me?
I remember when the doctor pulled you out, the first thing I thought was that he was being too rough with you. And he actually held you like a little Sprite bottle, and he was like, "Here's your baby." That was the most proud moment of my life. Don't tell your brothers, because it's 3 of y'all. But it was like looking at a blank canvas and just imagining what you want the painting to look like at the end, but also knowing you can't control the paint strokes. You know, the fear was just, I got to bring up a black boy in Mississippi, which is a tough place to bring up kids, period. But there are statistics that say black boys born after the year 2002 have a 1 in 3 chance of going to prison. And all 3 of my sons were born after the year 2002.
So, Dad, why do you take me to protest so much?
I think I take you for a bunch of reasons. One is that I want you to see what it looks like when people come together, but also that you understand that it's not just about people that are familiar to you, but it's about everybody. Did you know the work that Martin Luther King was doing was for everybody and it wasn't just for black people?
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. So that's how you got to think. You decide that you want to be a cab driver, then you got to be the most impactful cab driver that you can possibly be.
Are you proud of me?
Of course. You my man. I just love everything about you, period.
The thing I love about you never gives up on me. That's one of the things I will always remember about my dad.
You said it like I'm on the way out of here or like I'm ready to go.
So, Dad, what are your dreams for me?
My dream is for you to live out your dreams. It's an old proverb that talks about when children are born, children come out with their fists closed because that's where they keep all their gifts. And as you grow, your hands learn to unfold because you're learning to release your gifts to the world. And so for the rest of your life, I want to see you live with your hands unfolded.
So that was Albert and Aiden Sykes. We actually did a callback. That interview was done many, many years ago, and we actually recently did a callback interview with them, which if we have extra time, we can play. This is another one with Chloe Longfellow speaking about her grandmother.
She had red hair. It was red hair out of a bottle, but it was still red hair. And she was a spitfire. If you messed with her and she didn't think it was right, she would tell you. But I do remember that she always smiled with her eyes, even when she was angry, even when she was tired. She was my very first best friend. It's really surprising the amount of life lessons you can learn in a kitchen if you have the right teacher. She used to try to tell me about acceptance and how to be a good human being. She'd get all the ingredients for a soup, and she'd look at it and she'd go, "Now see, honey, this is how the world works. Some people are onions, some people are potatoes. It'd be a really boring soup if you just put potatoes in there, wouldn't it? But if you add leeks, if you add some bacon, then you make this wonderful thing. And all these different people come together to make this wonderful thing called our world." And one time she had grown some beets. We brought them in, cleaned them off, and I got to move the page in the cookbook. And I had beet juice all over my hands, and I left a little tiny handprint on her cookbook. And I started to cry because I thought I had ruined it. That was Grandma's favorite book. But she took a piece of beet and she covered her hand and she put her handprint on the other side and made our thumbs touch in the print and said, "It's perfect now." If I really miss her, I just open the book and go back to that page. She touched it so often that it still smells like her, even all these years later. She used to tell me that the sky was black velvet and the stars were holes that had been punched in the ceiling of heaven, and that was how our loved ones looked down at us and saw if we were doing wrong or if we were doing right, or just check in on us every so often. So every time I look up at the sky, she's there.
So those are just two audio cards, as we call them, that tell you a little bit about StoryCorps and the sorts of stories that we produce on the radio. but I want to be very clear that we collect stories from all Americans of all types across the entire country. If I showed you a heat map of all the places that in cities that we've done interviews, it would basically be the entire country. So let me tell you about StoryCorps Connect. Most people want to be heard and to leave a record of their life, a message to the next generation. StoryCorps allows you to do that. And if you agree, as a participant who shares your story with us, we'll preserve your recording at the Library of Congress, where your descendants and the public can listen to your story, hopefully forever. And so we invite you to do that. Any person can make a reservation to record at a StoryCorps booth, and anyone can download our app or access StoryCorps Connect on your internet browser to record your own conversation. Invite your spouse, invite your best friend, your parent, your child, your grandchild, your neighbor. These stories will also be preserved at the Library of Congress. Now, when the pandemic came around, StoryCorps pivoted to create a way to do interviews that was not face-to-face. Prior to the pandemic, like many things in our lives, we had been oriented around a face-to-face connection. And when that no longer became possible, because we wouldn't want to put our participants at risk, Dave and our digital team pivoted quickly to create a video conferencing version of StoryCorps, and that's what is StoryCorps Connect. In the beginning, we focused on producing radio stories that focused on the typical things that were in the news and on everybody's mind at that time. That was life on lockdown, the pandemic, medical stories, essential workers. And so I wanted to share with you 2 StoryCorps Connect audio cards that relate to our early life in lockdown. This is actually our founder's, Dave Isay's son and his mother. So it's a grandson speaking with his grandmother. And it's an early test interview.
How has living through the experience of COVID-19 made you feel?
It's terrible. I hate being alone. I hate not being able to see you, Toby. I hate not being able to hug you, but I can live through it.
Are you afraid?
I'm not afraid of dying. I've had a great life. I've done my job. What I'm afraid of is losing somebody I love. And that makes me sleepless. My grandmother died in the flu epidemic of 1918, which we're thinking a lot about because we're in a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And my mother and her sisters, they were all orphans. And that gave me a sense that you can have troubles and sorrows, but your family, if you're very lucky and you're very loving, it will survive. Toby, what was it like to have COVID?
It wasn't great.
Are you feeling better now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you all better?
No, not all better, but I'm feeling better.
Good. I'm so glad you're feeling better. I want you to be well, and I love you from A to Z and back. You're living through one of the most crazy and consequential times in a century, and you survived.
Yeah. I love you, Grandma.
I love you, Toby.
So that's one I think that many of us in this room today can probably connect, and that resonates with us a little bit from the perspective of caring about an elder or an older person in our lives, or knowing somebody who had COVID. I wanted to share another story between 2 bus drivers.
My father was a bus driver, and he would take me to work with him on days that he had no babysitter. And I just remember I would sit there right by his feet, and he would give me the microphone, and he would tell me, say, Lexington and 96th Street coming up next. So you would hear me in my little baby voice, Lexington and 96th Street up next. And I loved it. I thought it was the best job in the world as a kid. So I'm here because I love the job.
We take a chance every day with snowstorms, traffic, people running in front of your bus.
Through all the trials and tribulations we do like doing what we do for New York City.
We do. We have a driver's heart.
Yeah.
But now our heart is being tested. And it's one hell of a test.
Every day that we step foot on that bus, we come home with the possibility of not affecting ourselves only, but our loved ones.
You know, we've seen a lot of brothers die, a lot of co-workers lose their life behind this attack.
What gives me the most hope right now, I have a good friend, and I see him with a roll of caution tape. And every bus that passes by, he's running in and taping off the seat right behind the bus driver, making sure nobody sits there. So the next bus, I got on with him and I helped him do it faster. And every bus that came on, we did it. You know, once you're against a wall, the only way you could go is forward. I want you to know that you got a brother in me for life now. You know what I mean? If I didn't know it before, I know it now for sure.
We're going to make it through this, man. We're going to make it through.
So what is StoryCorps Connect? StoryCorps Connect is a video chatting platform similar to Zoom that allows you to hold a conversation, record it, enter metadata, and then share it online and archive it with the Library of Congress. People are recording stories not only on COVID-19, but on their COVID milestones, like we had a virtual graduation. If any of you had relatives or friends involved who weren't able to walk with their class this year, birthdays, milestones like Mother's Day, Father's Day, and a way for youth to connect with their grandparents who may be self-isolating for safety concerns. We see immense potential for this platform to serve the public good in allowing everyday Americans to record their stories and add them to the American Archive. We'd love for you to join us in this effort and recommend this platform to your family and friends and record your own story. So now I will tell you how. So the first thing that you're going to do is choose somebody to honor. You're going to go to StoryCorps.connect.org. As you can see up there in step 2. And there you're going to find a whole list of how you're actually going to do it. But the most important things are the things you do offline. So that's choosing somebody to record with. Then you're going to prepare a set of questions. At StoryCorpsConnect.org, you can find a PDF that has a lot of great questions that our radio producers have decided have seen result in really great conversations. There's a ton of questions on there. Some of them are just general questions to speak with somebody about their life in general, and some of them are themed to COVID and life on lockdown, etc. So we know from experience that a typical 40-minute conversation, you can only get through about 7 questions. So you're gonna read through them all and choose your questions carefully. But you're also not going to be afraid to go off script. Many of the best conversations come out of a surprise. Somebody says something interesting or unexpected and their fellow interviewer just asks why or how or follows that line of inquiry. So prepare questions, but also don't be afraid to go off script. Then you're going to create an archive with StoryCorps. And you're going to go to archive.storycorps.org. And I'm going to have all of the list of these websites for you at the end of this presentation. But that is the location, archive.storycorps.org, where we have all of the StoryCorps interviews that have been made public by our patrons. So over the last 17 years, we've recorded over 80,000 face-to-face interviews. And many of those are available online for you to listen, search keywords for, etc. All you have to do is create an account with us. So once you have your person that you're going to do the interview with, once you have your questions, and once both of you have created an archive account, you're going to decide on a day to hold the interview. This is really a 2-3 step process. So you're going to decide on what day you're going to do that interview, and you're both going to show up at, say, 12 noon. Then you're going to log into your archive account at archive.storycorps.org. Then you're going to go to StoryCorps Connect, and through a quick series of buttons, you're going to the primary person is going to click into the actual interview platform, send a link over to your interview partner, just like you do on Zoom, You're going to press record to hold your interview. And afterwards, you're going to input metadata. Now, that's just basically a form that you fill out, a simple form that asks you what you spoke about. It asks you for keywords. It gives you an opportunity to write a short description of what happened in the interview, which is really what topics and themes you guys discussed. If you go to archive.storycorps.org, you'll see a ton of interviews where people have already done exactly this, and you'll get an idea of what you're supposed to do. Then once you're done with that, you press save. And by being on our website, you allow StoryCorps to upload the interview to our archive, and it also ends up going to the Library of Congress as well. And then once, about 30 minutes after you press save, you're gonna get an email that has a link to your interview. So that means that it's already up. You'll have a couple privacy settings, which you'll wanna discuss with your partner. You can choose to have the interview totally private, which means both of you can access it and see it and listen to it online, but nobody else can. The other option is to make it available only to people on the StoryCorps website who are signed in. So that way you're sort of making it safe in the StoryCorps community. And the third option is to make it just available on the internet so that anybody can access your story, whether or not they're logged into our site. And so step 3 would be to access your interview and then share it with your friends and family, or to make it available to the world. We have a full suite of support materials that will help you to get started. So we have a getting started guide, which sort of walks you through all of the precise steps. We also have a wonderful animation and video that tells you how. We have our great questions list. We have conversation tips. We have tips to help you create your own studio out of your bedroom or any other space that you have in your home. And we also have recording tips to help you make a recording sound that you're going to be happy listening to many years down the road. I wanted to share with you just a few of our great questions. These ones are not COVID specific. These are just general life questions that you can ask to somebody in your life to help generate a strong conversation, something that you'll want to have in either the StoryCorps archive and your own personal family archive. And these are available at StoryCorpsConnect.org. So the key points about StoryCorps Connect is that it's free, it's easy to use, it's accessible via your internet browser, although I will say that it works best with Chrome. It connects you via video and audio. The audio only is archived with StoryCorps and at the Library of Congress, and you have to be age 13 or above. So I leave you to, I'm sorry, I'm not leaving you. I ask you to think about who you'd like to interview and why, and what stories or connections feel important to you in your community right now. As we know that is changing every single day in the time of COVID very quickly. And also remember that you can record multiple StoryCorps Connect interviews. So here I will open it up to questions if anybody from the audience would like to ask me anything. And here, I guess while we're discussing are the links and resources that you can use to find, to access StoryCorps Connect. So the top one, archive.storycorps.org, is where you're going to make your account. StoryCorps.org//connect is where you will actually find StoryCorps Connect and access our video chat technology. And you can also go to diy.storycorps.org, which will tell you, give you exhaustive resources on doing your own StoryCorps interview from home. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. If you have a question, fellow Rotarians, please post those in the Zoom group chat, and we'll relay them to Maria. And seeing none yet, Maria, I'll ask you a question. What have you seen as the most common one-on-one interview? Father and son, mother-daughter, someone with a grandfather? What have you seen as the most common?
Yeah, we've actually found that StoryCorps Connect has been a huge hit in the classrooms. We've had a ton of teachers who've been very pleased to use StoryCorps Connect as part of their hybrid online learning platform. A lot of teachers were really scrambling to figure out what to do back in the spring. And so they had the assignment to have their students speak to somebody in their life. And many of them actually chose their parents and their grandparents. Some of them did, their best friend from school, but a lot of the students, and these are, mostly middle school, high schoolers, really just wanted to talk with their parents at a time when, life was pretty stressful. The future was uncertain, unknown. And I think a lot of them wanted to just kind of reflect on life advice and, how you persevere through adversity and, just kind of what's going on.
From Lori Vidal, Maria, what is a driveway moment?
Right, thank you. So a driveway moment is, as you've probably seen from the StoryCorps Connect interviews that I've shared with you, a lot of them really tug at your heartstrings and can inspire some tears. And so a lot of people call StoryCorps Story Cry, or CryCorps, because if you listen to Morning Edition, oftentimes the production of the stories is just of such high caliber that it leaves you in tears. Not sad tears, but just sort of tears at the profundity of the most essential emotions that we have as humans, which are love, the search for justice, family, stuff like that. And so we have a way as producers at StoryCorps of really getting down to the most essential aspects of what it means to be human in about 3 minutes. And it can cause you to break down right before you go to work. So we get a lot of emails from people about, they had to go to a meeting, but they had mascara running down their cheeks. So that's sort of a driveway moment when you arrive at work or you arrive wherever you're going to go, and you don't want to turn off the radio because this great little story is on, and it's just so touching that it moves you to tears.
Our next question for you comes from Jenny Van Hart. With all the social issues that have been going on in the country, especially Black Lives Matter, how has this impacted the StoryCorps Connect?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually, it's quite a question how StoryCorps interacts with the public on issues like this. And our response has been to ask our listeners and our participants what they think about this moment. And so we published a conversation guide about the George Floyd murder and the subsequent unrest throughout the country. If you Google George Floyd StoryCorps, or you go to storycorps.org/George-Floyd, you can actually find a sort of microsite that we created to invite people from across America, but also affected regions, to have a conversation with somebody in their life about what this means for them. And the George Floyd conversation piece was actually recommended by a friend of ours at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, who was interested in collecting stories in the South, particularly by civil rights veterans. And with the recent passing of John Lewis, one of the ideas, although we published our publication prior to that, but since his death, there's been renewed conversation about how important it is to make sure that we document the stories and anecdotes and memories of people who lived through the first civil rights era. And so basically, our objective is to understand and create a platform for people who are living through this to talk about it. And we've had a couple of key sort of use cases, and one of the ones that we're most interested is people who have lived through this before. So somebody who's an older adult or an elder who was marching in the streets in the 60s, speaking to somebody who is maybe a teenager, maybe in their 20s, maybe in their 30s, who's experiencing something like this for the first time, and talking about what has changed, how we have, evolved as a society, and what hasn't changed. And just to reflect about that, because we think that's a really important part of the American story right now.
Next question is from Deborah Newell. And she is asking, are veterans groups using the system? And I'll add to that, that's another important group of folks to speak with, younger people speaking to people who've been through world wars.
Yes, thank you. StoryCorps loves military families and everybody who's involved in that community. And I will say this is not Connect specifically related, but we have something called the Military Voices Initiative, which has its own mobile booth that travels across the United States. I think they just finished their second tour, and that was a recontinuation of previous work that had been done in years past. We have a huge trove of military families, active, retired, etc. And it's a constituency that we actively seek out. So we have huge links to the Military Voices of America, but we invite absolutely everybody to go on StoryCorps Connect and talk about what it means to be alive, what it means to be an American. I mean, at its heart, this is an American conversation project, and every single person in America has something to say, and nobody's voice is more valid or less valid than anybody else's. And so as we are entering we are already in and possibly looking at even more historic moments in American history, we invite everybody to record with us.
Next question, Maria, comes from Kent Walker. The StoryCorps Airstream was in Gainesville a few years ago. Any plans to return to Gainesville in the future? Of course, after COVID.
Thank you. I'm actually not part of the team that plans the mobile tour, but I will say that we basically do a loop around, I'll give you some insider baseball. The Airstream trailer can only be in places that have a certain climate. And so obviously we can't be in North Dakota in the middle of winter because we couldn't keep the trailer warm enough. And we wouldn't be in Gainesville in the middle of summer because we couldn't keep it cool enough. But if you look at the history of where the mobile booth goes, it tends to stay in some specific types of areas. So I would say that if the mobile tour has been there in the past, might not be there next year, but I think that you can count on it being in the region again at some point.
Question from yours truly, Maria. Any thought to, I'm trying to phrase this the right way, to allow people to connect that might not be able to connect? For example, my father would love to ask Willie Mays 5 or 6 questions.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea that I hadn't heard before. Sort of like an ask me anything, but I mean, obviously we can't speak with those departed, but sort of an ask me anything interview with somebody famous. I will say this, I think it's a fantastic idea. Typically what we've focused on with StoryCorps Connect is sort of the every person, the person who wouldn't necessarily be on the cover of Vogue or Sports Illustrated, because we believe that those are the lives those are the real lives that really matter, and we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to be a part of history and have their story preserved. But I think that is really intriguing, and I will bring that back to the team.
Very good. Next question from Jenny Van Hart again. Is this accessible internationally? Can people overseas record these messages?
That's a great question. So the answer is that we are not promoting or marketing this to folks overseas because we have the American law that covers our usage of our site. But I think if you go to archive.storycorps.org and you look at Connect Stories, you might find stories that were recorded with people overseas.
Again, folks, if you have a question for our guest today, Maria, please type that into the Zoom group chat and we will ask that to her. We have about 6-7 minutes left, so let's keep those questions rolling if you have them. Very great topic today and very intriguing. It's funny that this topic came up today, Maria, because I was just given a cassette tape by a friend of mine of a great-grandfather recording who came over from Greece that she wants to play for her kids.
Hey, that's pretty cool. You know, we had a woman from StoryCorps who emailed me recently who actually was in Florida. And she emailed me a picture of some magnetic tape. It was just a reel, like it was probably from, I guess, the 70s or so. And she said, what can I do with this? And so I connected her with a man who runs a studio that digitizes old magnetic tape. But basically it was this treasure that they found, I guess, in an attic somewhere. And the whole family was on pins and needles waiting for it to get digitized so that they could all listen to what the aunt had recorded, 50 years ago. And I'll have a copy. It's really incredible. But actually StoryCorps, the whole genesis for the idea of StoryCorps came because when Dave Isay was a little boy, he had interviewed both of his grandparents, I guess, about their lives, etc. And as an adult, I guess when he was in college, he went back to look for that tape and he couldn't find it. And he was devastated that he had lost that, that bit of family history, but also, a wonderful artifact in his life, in his personal archive. And that was actually the thing that prompted him to start StoryCorps when he had the MacArthur money. So I will ask you guys a question. Does anybody have ideas of who they might like to record, or what questions they'd like to ask, or what theme they might like to record on?
If you have one, type it in, Rotarians. We know your mics are muted. And while we're waiting for people maybe to type in some ideas, Ed Ellett asks, and I was thinking this, is there a way for taped interviews to be included into StoryCorps? Just hearkening back to the story I shared with you, the gentleman came over from Greece and changed the spelling of their last name from a K to a C so he could move up in the line at Ellis Island.
That's pretty smart. Yeah, so actually this sort of also, StoryCorps Connect just is one part of StoryCorps. As I mentioned, the Military Voices initiative is separate, the mobile tour is separate, but the total online archive, which is at archive.storycorps.org, which is the top link on this slide right here. If you go to archive.storycorps.org and you make an account, you can. So what you have to do is actually get that tape digitized. And if you just Google in your area, magnetic tape digitization, you'll find a studio that will take your physical recorder. It could be a cassette tape, it could be a reel-to-reel, it could be whatever. And they can digitize that for you. Some people are able to digitize it themselves. That's not my area of expertise. But once you have it in digital format, which is an MP3 or a WAV file, you can actually upload it to our archive, and it will be, if you can make it private, which means you're the only person who can see it. But even if it's private, you can get what we call a secret link, and so you can share it with your family. So it's not visible to anybody else searching our site, but you can see it, and anybody who has the secret link can see it. Or you can make it public to the public, or you can make it available to other people who have accounts with us at archive.storycorps.org. But yes, if you have a piece of physical tape, of audio tape, and you digitize it and you get it into an MP3 or WAV file, then yes, you can upload it and it will go to the Library of Congress, and it will be available online for anybody in your family to listen to. And I'm actually doing this with some of my Nana's tapes. And the nice thing about it is that you can share the link with your entire family. And I know people who put it in their wills, they put it in where they keep their photo albums, just the knowledge that this oral history exists. Because, for many, whoever gets those photos after you pass and after they pass, as long as America exists, the Library of Congress will exist, and somebody from your family will be able to access that oral history. So it's just an incredibly powerful and free way to keep your family history alive and contribute to, an American history project. I think it's really, really extraordinary that that is available for free to all of us. So I would encourage you to do that.
That's a great answer to a question. I think that Eric Jewell, who with KISS 105 Radio, he might be able to digitize some audio for us. He says we should start a Rotary group so we preserve some of the history of Rotary in this format.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that StoryCorps Connect and our online archive in general allows you to do is create sort of like a microsite for your stories. So everybody who records a story, say you guys can all put the keyword hashtag Gainesville, Florida Rotary Club, or some sort of hashtag that applies to you. And then everybody can upload their story onto this collection site, so that you can just go to that collection site and all of these interviews will just be available there. You can also just search the hashtag and then the results will just show you all of those interviews. But yes, we have a lot of people who've made communities and we encourage you to do it. It's a great way to preserve your history. And I will say this too, if you go to a story booth and you have the professional recording equipment and the facilitator there, you're gonna have a 40-minute conversation. But you know, if that's a little bit too long, you can have a 25-minute conversation, you can have a 30-minute conversation. There's no pressure to make it 40 minutes, although I will say that once you start recording, sometimes it's hard to stop. So we say, I think you're not really supposed to go more than an hour and a half, otherwise the file gets kind of large. So we say just record a second interview with the same person and just pick up where you left off. But 40 minutes is what we recommend the interview length to be.
Well, we are running short on time. To all of our fellow Rotarians on the Zoom call, how about a virtual round of applause for Maria? Thank you all so much. It was really wonderful to be here with you, and I wanted to say thank you. So have a wonderful day. You all can email me. My email address is msantiago@storycorps.org. If anybody has any questions, please be in touch. I'd be happy to help you get set up. And to close out our program today, and a special presentation to you for appearing today, Maria, here is our president once again, Matthew Brady.
Thank you, Maria. Very, very good presentation. And as your presentation talks about opening opportunities, really opportunities for family and friends and society, this year's Rotary theme is Rotary Opens Opportunities. So I would like to send to you one of our commemorative coins, Rotary Opens Opportunities, symbolic of what you shared with us today, and send that to you so you can remember this presentation and the tools that you've given us to start our own group and move forward with. So thank you very much. Great presentation. And I was reading a lot of comments along the way, and many talked about how they could never listen to a story in that driveway moment without a tear in the eye. And so some of you closed out your video during some of those stories too, and I can't blame you because I had to distract myself as well. So thank you again. It was a pleasure. Reminder next week. So have good thoughts, say a prayer for us as we go with a trial run and video presentation. You'll still be looking from this format, but we'll be showing some different camera angles and trying things out. Our speaker will be Chris Wells, Mr. Do-Goodery himself. So it should be quite entertaining if it is anything like the live presentation I saw back in March or any of the videos that I have seen of him. So please join in, but we'll be ready to test things out. And then before we adjourn, a quote of the day. And thank you. Tom keeps providing me with some great quotes, and I greatly appreciate it. I always look around and then he comes up with something better. But people are hungry for stories. It's part of our very being. Storytelling is a form of history, of immortality too. It goes from one generation to another. Louis Studs Terkel. Thank you, Rotarians, and have a great day.